one's for the birds, this one's for the city. This one for the fans that bleed green with me. Push down the 95 to the right is the link. With the team pulling up, knowing that they're getting beat. Exit Broad Street, right on Patterson. Xfinity Live, CPP, what's happening? Dub F Fly, stop by F1. Fly, Eagles fly, you hear the song getting sung? What team in the league is number one? Bird gang, yeah, I said it twice. You heard me say it once, now you sure you heard it right. No lies being told, yeah, it's all facts. It ain't me, Green or Kelly, we don't rock with that. Any given Sunday, we don't ever slack. Yeah, we got an SP, time to run it back. And even on the road, yeah, we taking over. All you see is green, like you at the Nova. Care less about your squad, bro, it's only us. A cheesesteak tailgate, yeah, we good, bro. Beer pong baptism, you already know. Con shot, tomato pie, bring 3 or 5. After every bird gang, you know where to be. 4th of July, NBC, in the heart of Philly. About the birds, all about the birds. E-Rock, yeah, find us Hollywood Herb. What's up?
Welcome to episode 108 of 4th and JAWN, recording from NBC Sports Philadelphia, live in Wells Fargo Center.
What's up?
You know? Now, this weekend, thinking about this Eagles team, we were all on the edge of our seats, thinking about what we were going to see.
This one's for the birds, this one's for the city.
What's that?
The edge of our bleachers.
Edge of our bleachers. That's a shout out to Buffalo there. But I mean, just thinking about this team, what were we going to see from them? I mean, the good news, the season is not over. We got a W, gentlemen. But the bad news, if you wanted a trade, a major trade did not happen in the city of Philadelphia. But what the Eagles did, they turned a negative into a positive. The negative would be Orlando Scandrick. He would be the lemon, because the Eagles turned that into lemonade. The team regrouped, came back, got a big W, got back to doing what they do best, and that's winning football games. Now, if you were a fan hoping to get that trade, I mean, you could be a little upset. You could be disappointed. To quote Yoda, it's the do or not do. There is no try. For the people out there upset that Howie didn't try hard enough, you could be a little upset. But you have to look at the reality of things. What Howie's basically saying to me right now, he is doubling down on the players in this locker room right now. He's got Deshaun Jackson coming back this week. Cravon LeBlanc. Jason Peters is going to come back. He's got some pieces to the puzzle. Is he giving a message to this locker room saying he believes in the guys in this locker room? Because, I mean, obviously, they could have went out there, overpaid for a couple players. And I've been pounding the table for a nice little trade, but a guy like Chris Harris costs too much. A guy like Robbie Anderson costs too much. I mean, you're not giving up a second for Robbie Anderson. You're not giving up they were talking about trading for Darius Slay, a first and a third. That's I just feel like as a draft guy, you have to spend draft capital wisely. And if the time, the situation arises perfectly, then you drop the hammer. But moving forward, I mean, I feel like Howie Roseman believes in the players in this locker room. He's got the nucleus of players that, if healthy, this is a squad that we all kind of call a Super Bowl team now. We're halfway there. Howie's living on a prayer. What say you, Mr. E-Rock?
Oh, well, this was definitely strategic seeding for this particular episode, because last week we had a little argument, right? We started bickering back and forth, and it's very unlike E-Rock and Gale to not agree on a particular situation.
That was a healthy conversation.
It was a healthy conversation, but a lot of people said we sounded like an old married couple, kind of arguing back and forth. And there was the hashtag Team Gale versus hashtag Team E-Rock, and I can say that hashtag Team Gale got the most support, all right? But I got my butt kicked on that one. But it turns out that hashtag Team E-Rock ended up having the final say and what exactly happened with the Philadelphia Eagles.
He tried,
and the trade. He tried. Listen, the reason I had you go first is because I wanted you to put a little sunshine on the episode. I wanted you to put a little positivity, and I also wanted to see how you would spin this certain thing, knowing that the Eagles did not do any trades. I don't know, for the life of me, where Eagles Twitter Eagles Facebook, Eagles social media, Eagles fans in general thought there was some mystical unicorn out there, a player, probably the age of 26, who's been to Pro Bowls and who has been an All-Pro, who has a team-friendly deal, whose team just cannot wait to get rid of them, that they could give some sort of 7th-round conditional draft pick to, and he would come to Philadelphia and find himself. Maybe they would build him a phone booth somewhere at Lincoln Financial Field, since they don't make those anymore, and he would find a place to change in it, come out, be Superman, and resurrect or save the Eagles season. I don't know what gave them the impression that there's GMs out there that when Howie Roseman picks up the phone, he offers them a couple Wawa hoagies, maybe Sidney Jones, maybe a conditional 7th-round pick, a half-price coupon for Chickies and Pete's crab fries, a season pass to the Philadelphia Zoo, and these people say, "Oh, Howie, come on in. Thank you so much for being so generous. We'll give you whatever you want." I saw this coming a mile away. And that's because when you take a look at the NFL landscape, it's the trades that have happened prior to this have gotten a little bit out of control. Would you not agree? Like, when in the history of the NFL have you seen trades before the trade deadline dealing with, when did 2 first-round picks become a thing? That was never a thing before this year.
I think I think it's changing, though.
It is changing, but it's changing to a ridiculous pace. And I honestly think the GMs and general managers have taken a look at, okay, Mack goes for 2 first-round picks. Woo, that's a lot. Jalen Ramsey goes for 2 first-round picks. Fitzpatrick goes for 2 first-round picks. And all of a sudden, the asking price for these players keep going up and up and up to the point where NFL GMs have got to be like, yo, we've got to start chilling with this, because we're going to pigeonhole ourselves in a corner where these teams are asking for way too much, and we're going to blow all the draft capital we have on trading for these assets. And let's face it, the New England Patriots set the bar at the wide receiver market at a 2nd-round pick. Boys and girls.
Well, on Sanu, they offered a 2nd for Sanu prior to the season starting. So a lot of people out there were saying.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, look, Eagles fans, you got to understand what the NFL trade deadline is all about, right? It is the last-ditch effort to add to your roster. The fundamental cornerstone of building an NFL franchise is the draft. Then you build through free agency. You add the necessary pieces through free agency. And the trade deadline, much as it is with other sports, is a negotiation of 2 identities, buyers and sellers. If you are a buyer, you're willing to spend a little bit more fragrant. What's the word I'm looking for? You're
willing to spend more.
You're willing to spend more because you know you are on the cusp of going to – you think that player is going to increase your – you already know you're in the playoffs. The New England Patriots, when they offer a 2 for Sanu, they're just trying to increase their odds that they get to a Super Bowl. They're looking for the next Brandon Cooks. Yep. So there's buyers in this league, people that know they're going to the playoffs, know they're going to make a championship run. And then there's sellers, people that are selling because they know that these assets that they have are not in their long-term plans. And in the case of the Miami Dolphins a little bit, they're tanking. They know they're going to be at the top of the draft order. They're trying to get as many assets as they can to rebuild their teams. And then you've got a team like the Philadelphia Eagles, who, let's face it, guys, as much as I'm hyped about the Buffalo win up there, 4-4. They're a 500 ball club. There isn't one player out there that was going to be for a reasonable asking price, that was going to come in and salvage this season. Or not that the season needed to be salvaged, but take them over the top to make them immediate Super Bowl contenders. Gail, does that make any sense to you?
Yeah, it makes sense. I was thinking about coming from, a place of, when the time is right and the trade makes sense, you make that trade. But the way that Howie looked, pretty much he looked desperate at this moment going across the league. Like everybody knew what position the Eagles were coming from. They were knocking on every single door trying to make an opportunity happen, and that's where the other team has leverage. And even like the Denver Broncos, the weirdest situation for me is like to see teams like the Bengals and the Broncos, where they have players of value that want to lead their teams next year, and they're not trading them. That's really dumb on their part. I heard Chris Harris actually didn't want to leave the team. He wanted to play out the year. But, A.J. Green, Geno Atkins, those guys for the Bengals. The Bengals, I was believe an NFC guy was saying that the Bengals don't even bother calling the Bengals because they're not going to give you a trade or anything. So I think from where we stood, I just think we looked desperate. And if they wanted to make that move, they just had to make a power move. Like if it was the right guy, then I understand you make that move. And there was the only really one right guy for me to overpay, and that was Jalen Ramsey. Other than that, you can't throw a 2 at Robbie Anderson if that was the price.
No, absolutely not.
Like I was sitting there watching Robbie Anderson interviews, going through all the police reports, and are we going to do this? No, that's not a smart move on our end. Yes, he's a field stretcher. If we gave him a 5th round, maybe that would have worked for me. It would be a 1-year rental, and maybe you sign him. But I think a lot of this comes back to Deshaun Jackson. How do they feel about Deshaun Jackson moving forward? Is he healthy enough? He's not going to be 100% healthy, but is he healthy enough to give them something moving forward?
And Hollywood, we'll get to you in a second, but I want to make this point before it flutters out of my head, which it has a tendency to do. A couple weeks ago I said that trades made in season will often be out of desperation. And trades made out of desperation are often one-sided. And I think that I completely agree with you on that one. Like the Eagles looked desperate. So I'm seeing a lot of fire Howie on the timeline. I'm seeing a lot of Howie didn't do his job. You heard reports that he was actively...
You heard a lot of fire Howie?
A ton of it, dude.
Yeah.
The timeline was livid. The timeline was livid over this.
And that doesn't make sense. I mean, we just won a Super Bowl. Ungrateful peasants.
Oh, my God. All right, well, I'm not willing to go that far. But what I'm trying to say is, when you take a look at a Robbie Anderson, Joe Douglas spent 3 years standing behind Howie Roseman, making trades with the connects that he made, standing behind him, watching him fleece these teams for guys like Jordan Howard, fleece these teams for guys like Jay Ajayi, make all these moves and look like a genius in the process. You think that when Joe Douglas picked up that phone, didn't even pick up the phone, looked at his phone, and saw a 215 number was calling, that he didn't know that was Howie Roseman.
Hang it up.
Yeah, you ain't doing this to me. They wanted the 2 for Robbie Anderson. What did you want him to do? They wanted the 2 for Chris Harris. When I said a couple weeks ago that it's not as easy as do the deal, whatever it takes, because there's a lot of layers that go into this. You just said Chris Harris. Everyone's disappointed by Chris Harris. Denver Broncos wanted the 2 for a 30-year-old cornerback whose contract was expiring, who, by the way, didn't even want to leave. What do you want Howie Roseman to do? What do you want him to do?
I mean, sometimes, like I said, if the right guy's there, you overpay, and that's you really have to make that decision. That's the guy that puts you guys over the hump. Really makes sense, and those are the kind of moves that you make.
People are pissed off about Robbie Anderson.
Yeah, I mean,
don't make the same mistake twice. You gave up a 3 for Golden Tate last year, and Mike Groh didn't know how to use him because guess what? You already had a slot receiver on the team. Yeah. You're doubling up on stuff. Now you got Deshaun Jackson, who's supposed to speak on Thursday, coming back, and you're going to get Robbie. Now you got 2 burners. I guarantee you that LL Bean mannequin, who I can't stand seeing him up in front of the podium addressing the media, he won't know how to use. Hollywood, take this. You got it. I'll keep rambling and ranting on.
All right. So I looked at this in how I've been looking at it the past few weeks. I have looked at our drafts, how we've done the past few years. And honestly, I'm unimpressed. I don't think that we draft well as a team. And then I look around the league, and I look, does every team build through the draft? Because that's all everybody ever says is you got to build through the draft, And then I looked at the New England Patriots, and I went and I looked at their drafts, and I was like, you know what? They're really not that good at drafting either. I'm going to rattle off some names for me, and you shout out if you've heard about them in the NFL. N'Keal Harry.
Yep.
Hasn't played yet.
Yep.
He was their first-round pick this year. JAWN Williams, Chase Winovich, Damian Harris, Yadni Kajust. And I want you to notice a trend here as well. Jarrett Stidham, a quarterback.
Yep.
Byron Cowart, Jake Bailey, Ken Webster. Now back to 2018. Isaiah Wynn, Sony Michel. Yes, you hit on Sony Michel, but that's
Wynn got injured this
Wynn.
first year. But go ahead.
Duke Dawson, Jawan Bentley, Christian Sam, Braxton Berrios, Danny Etling, Keon Crossan, Ryan Izzo. And you go back to 2017. You've got Derek Rivers, Antonio Garcia, Dietrich Weiss, Connor McDermott. And the point I'm trying to make is none of these names resonate in the NFL. These are assets that the Patriots have acquired and really haven't been able to do much with. What I have noticed in the trend of them, though, is that any year that they have more than 4 picks, they're also drafting a quarterback. And what they're doing in that, they don't think Tom Brady's retiring this year. Tom Brady's probably not retiring next year. They're not drafting to get Tom Brady's successor. They're drafting so that they have a quarterback behind Tom Brady, because if there's a quarterback sitting behind Tom Brady, that quarterback gets value. He's the greatest quarterback of all time. He's sitting behind the greatest quarterback of all time. You look at Jimmy Garoppolo, you look at Jacoby Brissett, and I think
Castle.
Yeah, Matt Castle, and you look at that, and you see the game plan that the Patriots are going for, and that is simply to develop quarterbacks and then be able to flip them.
Yeah, I think what the Patriots have done, they bucked the trends. They at the time where they're drafting 2 tight ends and drafting a running back in the first round when everyone's like, don't draft a running back, and then when they pulled Michelle. I just think in the comp pick game and how they've been selecting, I think the one thing I think that Belichick has over a lot of these other GMs in the league, he's the coach, he's the GM, and he's picking his own groceries. And I think that does help him a little bit.
And what I see is that I've noticed, and I'm sure you guys have noticed as well, there's players that are dominant in college, and then it doesn't pan out in the NFL. And I've noticed that what the Patriots' formula seems to be is to let these guys all come into the NFL. And then you see who actually does pan out. And then you make trades and you make free agent acquisitions to find the guys that actually will be able to play. And then you use your draft assets. You use different players that have been developed underneath.
For proven talent.
Yeah, proven talent.
But what you're citing right there, and any time that somebody cites the New England Patriots, or anything about the modern era of New England Patriots football, you are citing the exception, not the norm. You are literally talking about the great, as much as it makes me throw up a little bit in my mouth when I say it, you're talking about the greatest franchise dynasty in NFL history.
But not the greatest drafting franchise.
It doesn't matter. You've got the greatest coach in NFL history. Screw Vince Lombardi and the greatest coach in NFL history.
I agree with that.
And up to a couple years, Gail, you know that I was a big Jerry Rice guy. He was the best. I kept pounding the table. He is the best football player to ever lace up cleats and put on a helmet and grace an NFL field.
Not when he put on that Popeyes helmet, but go ahead.
But now it's Tom Brady. I mean, just bar none. Tom Brady is the greatest. So you're talking about the greatest run franchise with the greatest head coach, the greatest quarterback, and forget Montana and Bill. All right, it's Bill and Brady.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that you're citing the exception. You're not citing the rule. The rule for the rest of the league historically is that you have to build through the draft. And while it is convenient to be able to graze through the rest of your pro personnel department and see what proven talent is going to be out there that could help you, like the trade that the Eagles made for the Cleveland Browns, throwing out a 4th-round pick for that kid, right? Mm-hmm. It is nice to be able to do that, but unfortunately for the rest of us dum-dums, we've got to build through the draft. And it does the Eagles absolutely no good right now to trade for Robbie Anderson, to trade for a Chris Harris, to give up something like a 2nd-round pick, to throw a Band-Aid, a temporary Band-Aid on a permanent problem. Listen, again, if your argument is that the Eagles don't draft well, I'm there with you. I'm at the front of the line. Mm-hmm. And if somebody's there at the front of the line, I'm kicking them to the side because I want to stand there and be at the front of the line, banging the drum that you guys need to draft better. But that doesn't mean that you give it up you give up on the draft, or you start willy-nilly just throwing picks at Band-Aids for proven talent. That's how you get yourself in trouble. That's how you become the Washington Redskins, by not drafting well, going out and signing free agents like Collins who make no sense for what your fit or what you're trying to do right there, and then trying to make in-season trades that, again, aren't getting you anywhere.
But there's nothing, there's nothing that's saying that you can't make other trades to acquire draft picks back as well.
I mean, but the Eagles also gave up multiple picks for Jason Peters. And these are the kind of players that are that makes sense for. If they are elite talents, you don't just do it for generic guys. If they are playmakers, then you make those moves. But if they're just, you're not going to get fleeced and put in a corner to make moves that don't make sense.
But when you say generic guys, there was a lot of generic guys with some pretty hefty price tags out there. Would I have liked the Robbie Anderson? Absolutely. Listen, if it was a fifth-round pick,
you're not
this deal would have been done, bro.
Yeah,
if it was a fourth-round pick for Chris Harris, this deal would have been done. But I guarantee you the same people that are saying fire Howie for doing nothing would have been the same people saying fire Howie because he made a bad trade at the end of the season.
Sure.
Like I guarantee it. And we're not in the position where we can just throw out picks like a New England Patriots.
I mean, the great thing about us moving forward is the multiple draft picks. I mean, there's going to be, double-digit draft picks. You're talking about 5, last year, 5 the year before. Mm-hmm. Down the pike, we're going to have like 20 different draft picks, hopefully.
Here are the Eagles' 2020 draft picks, and of course, I always had to check with the absolute source, Jimmy Kempski, because he's in charge of
comp pick genius,
comp pick mastermind. Right? We got a 1 or 2 3s. One's going to be a projected comp pick for Foles. All right, you finally get that Foles pick, something for him back. 2 4s. One is supposed to be a projected comp pick for Hicks. The Golden Tate pick when he was signed by the Giants, that with Sendejo kind of cancel each other out. You got 2 5s, both of which you own. One is your own. One is New England for the Bennett trade, and then you have a 6 for Cyprien. Now look again. I know the. What?
2 6s.
2 6s. I apologize. So I know, once again, that the Eagles aren't good at drafting in it. But if I'm the Eagles right now, I'm realizing that you're in the spot that you're in right now because the drafts haven't been good. So what I am going to do is get back to my roots, start investing in all the assets and the minds, by the way, to help, because I know Howie's forte is not the NFL draft. Well aware of that. Not making excuses for the guy. Mm-hmm. But surrounding him, sparing no expense, to surround him with all the minds that he needs to put together a draft board so he can have final say on these draft picks.
Well, he does have Andy Weidel with him, and Andy Weidel came together with Joe Douglas. So a guy who's been learning underneath Joe Douglas for umpteen years, that's a guy that's in place. But, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see where we go. But you did mention, the Eagles haven't been drafting well, but you do have to give credit where it is. I mean, Jason Peters went down. Our first round draft pick is playing pretty well. Mm-hmm. For a rookie, he's stepping right in, making big plays. A guy like another guy who was getting killed on the timeline over the last couple of weeks was Miles Sanders. He's had a ton of explosive plays, mm-hmm. A credible talent in space, but he showed you his ability to break off that juice I've been talking about, mm-hmm. with Miles Sanders. He finally showed it.
Dude, on wheels.
I mean, if you get him in open space, he's a one-cut runner, and he'll hit the hole and go. He's going to learn. Watching Jordan Howard, like I said, Jordan Howard is the perfect foundational back for the Eagles right now. He's the guy that can teach Miles Sanders how to run these inside zones to a T, have the patience. But, this guy has juice. I mean, that was exciting to see, and he was a second-round pick this year. So, obviously, we got to start drafting well on the back end of these drafts, because that's where, especially, paying Wentz all this money, we got to start balling on a budget and thinking accordingly.
And speaking of paying people money, a lot of these draft people who were on the trade block, a lot of them had expiring contracts. Personally, if you're going to sign somebody post-trade, let's sign somebody that you've already traded for. Like, I'm all on the Jordan Howard bandwagon. Mm-hmm. But him and Miles Sanders are absolutely an amazing 1-2 punch. Like, I would explore every opportunity to bring Jordan Howard back next year. Sign him long term.
It was funny, people were like, "Oh, Le'Veon Bell's available. Maybe we should trade for him."
What are you talking about?
Did you not see the Bills game? You're getting value at the running back position. You're not overpaying. You're not giving $15 million to a running back, or $15 to $13 million. That's not a smart move. I think we have 2 running backs that are they're very cheap.
And did you notice, for the last 2 weeks, scoring plays have been made when both of them been in the backfield. We talked about it on the previous episode, that one touchdown to Dallas Goedert, right? Mm-hmm. Both of them are in the backfield. Miles goes out for a route. Howard comes around the edge. Linebackers don't know what to do. They pull up a little bit, and that gives Dallas Goedert
Open field.
At least enough space to get open and score that touchdown. And then that run in Buffalo, dude, where Jordan Howard's almost acting like a fullback.
Yeah.
Like, so for the second straight week, you've had an explosive big play that it was resulted in points directly because you had both running backs in the backfield. Like, let's not make a trade and then sign somebody to plug a hole when I guarantee that next year, if you don't sign Jordan Howard, you are going to have to spend one of those draft assets on a running back again to back Sanders up.
Yeah.
Because he's just not ready. Like, he's explosive like Gale said. He's going to be a stud like Gale said. But he can't do everything. He can't do what Jordan Howard does. And that's the benefit of having a 1-2 punch like that.
Yeah, ground and pound. I mean, you think about that fourth quarter where, we're trying to put away the Buffalo Bills. You put in a bruiser like, he's like the Mike Tyson. He's hitting the ribs.
And he
he's
knows how
hitting
to
the
fall
ribs.
forward.
And he's always falling forward. So, I mean, you really like to see that from Jordan Howard. But you really like to see how they ran the ball. 36 snaps under center. And how many times have I've been saying, like, I just wish they would run the ball under center. They just did a good job. I think that the tight ends, a big shout out to the tight ends. Again, Dallas Goedert, a guy who is also a weapon in space and, a pass catcher, but he's also a solid blocker. And a guy gives effort. A lot of these run plays that you're seeing that are happening, Dallas Goedert is doing the dirty work,
We've been for weeks on this show asking it out to the viewing audience. What is the identity of this Philadelphia Eagles team? And I think finally, after Week 8, it's starting to come a little bit in the focus. And it's not the traditional Philadelphia Eagles team that you're and me and everyone sitting here and everybody watching is used to seeing. For years, for a couple decades, we were used to a vertical West Coast Andy Reid style offense.
Yep.
This team's identity, if they so choose to stick with their strengths of this football team,
Please.
is what?
A running team.
The running backs and the tight ends. The running backs and the tight ends. What's the two games, Gail, I'll ask you this. What's the two games where the Philadelphia Eagles during the 2019 season have looked the best? Give me the two games.
That would be the Green Bay Packers and the Buffalo Bills.
We didn't plan that out, the script. Everybody knows it. We looked the best against the Green Bay Packers and the Buffalo Bills. Against the Green Bay Packers, we had 336 total yards of offense. 176 of that came from running backs on the ground exclusively. 81 yards from tight ends. That's 76% of your offense and 2 scores coming from your running backs and your over 3/4 of your offense came from those 2 positions of strength, and you shocked the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau on a short week. And then against a tough team, against the Buffalo Bills, 371 total yards, 204 of them exclusively from running backs. 42 yards from tight ends. And then another 59 yards from running backs in the passing game. That's 82% of your total offense is coming from the running back and the tight end position. Ladies and gentlemen, we found the identity of this team. Now it is up to Doug Peterson to decide whether or not he continues on this trend and play to the strengths of this Philadelphia Eagles team. And that is going to become of the utmost importance because in the next 3 weeks, man, we've been wondering for a long time what this Philadelphia Eagles team actually is. We're going to learn a lot about them in the next 3 weeks. Because, boy, the next 3 weeks are tough.
It's a gauntlet.
You got Chicago Bears, obviously losing record, struggling team. The offense is not playing to the defense's level. They're wondering if Mitchell Trubisky is the guy out there. They're struggling offensively mightily. Then you've got your bye week. Then comes the team that you were mentioning with the drafts and the trade. That's the New England Patriots. It is a monster game. And then the week after that, the Seattle Seahawks. The big question for me moving forward is not what trade will happen for the dudes outside of the building. It's will Doug Peterson utilize the strengths of this team, the 53 guys he has in this locker room, and move forward and find that identity and be that running tight end, adapt his offense to the strengths of his team so we can move forward.
Attack the linebackers.
And if you get Deshaun Jackson back, that's just like an added bonus. I really think he's a tone setter. You have that guy in your lineup, it just changes the whole dynamic. I think the last couple of weeks we've just been hoping that Doug Peterson calls plays that make sense. I think the plays made sense this week. The screens, we've been asking for screens for weeks.
It's all working.
We got tight end screens. We got
working.
running back screens, and he even faked that. He even faked that screen to Alshon. And then he
set it up and ran.
And Wentz ran. I mean,
ran for it, giving him what the defense, simplifying the offense.
And that's what I like to see from Wentz. I mean,
who would have thought?
You're seeing some mobility. He's got that mobility, and he's got the guts to, take it down the field. But I think just watching him get back to his normal self, that was great to see. And
listen, Eagles fans, the trade deadline or the lack of moves at the trade deadline does not mean the Philadelphia Eagles are giving up on this team.
Yeah.
No.
The reinforcements are coming in. All right? You got Deshaun Jackson coming back. I don't know what % he'll be at, but just his presence on the field is going to add that vertical threat. Don't forget in the secondary, Avante's coming back. Cravon's coming back. Now, are these world beaters? No, but all of a sudden they start. Tell me you did not see the difference against the Buffalo Bills with Jalen, who has his flaws, and Darby, who clearly has his flaws. But together, all of a sudden, things started to make a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
Did the defensive line not have the appropriate time to get after the quarterback? Could it be that maybe we don't need to trade for a corner and give up a bunch of draft capital for it? Could it be that we don't need to give up a bunch of draft capital for a wide receiver? That help is on the way?
Could it be bad weather? Could it be Josh Allen?
It was windy, man.
Josh Allen. Josh Allen was the perfect quarterback for us to play. I thought, he's not an experienced quarterback, like in the league, like we faced, like a Matt Ryan, a Matt Stafford, or Aaron Rodgers type. I think, and again, this is the perfect quarterback for us to play. I mean, in terms of getting our groove back, so we can start teeing off on some of these QBs. Like Mitchell Trubisky is the perfect timing for him to play us, because I think he's struggling, and I think we can go after him again.
Listen, one of the beautiful things about being on this show, Fourth and JAWN, is kind of you talk through it, right? You talk your emotions through it. You're angry, you're upset, you're happy, you're stuff like that. There was a strategic placement of E-Rock to the outside of this table because I wanted Gail to come out first and give you that positive spin on it, because I came in here in some sort of mood. I was pissed, getting ready to rip people for selling the Fire Howie stuff and talking bad about the Eagles reference to the trade deadline. But as I'm talking myself, I was pissed off. And I'm down on this team. I was down on this team. But as I'm sitting here kind of talking through all of this emotion and all of this stuff, I'm starting to realize that maybe, just maybe, Stella's getting her groove back. You know what I mean? And we're listen, maybe Orlando Scandrick died for our sins so we could be resurrected. Maybe help is on the way. Maybe, just maybe, if we beat the Chicago Bears, which is possible, it's doable, if they do the right things and stick to their strengths and their identity, and then we're able to steal one against the Seattle Seahawks or the New England Patriots. You take a look at the last 5 games of the season, their combined record is 9-29. 9-29. You're at the Dolphins, versus the New York Giants, at the Redskins, Cowboys at home. That'll be a big one.
Yep, payback.
And then we'll be at the Meadowlands at the Giants. 26-35. Could it be, if they get a confidence booster in the next 3 games and stick to their identity and start to figure stuff out, meanwhile they got the recruits coming back to backfill the roster, could all of a sudden they start going on the run? But Dallas is in your way. Ho, 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 the Dallas Cowboys. I didn't forget about you guys. Last 5 games of their season, 32-26-1. They've got the Patriots, the Bills, the Bears, the Eagles, and Washington. That's no cakewalk. Could it be that we did not need to make a trade at all? Could it be, if you believe, and all of a sudden I'm sitting here starting to talk myself. I can't believe I came in here in one mood, and now as I'm talking through it, I'm starting to talk myself in an exact opposite direction. Yeah, you want to switch seats? You want to switch seats now? Let's switch seats. Okay.
I'm going to stay right here.
I need the big chair. I need the big chair. All right, here we go.
You forgot to sit on the phone booth.
This guy's all sunshines and ice cream over here now.
Oh, shut up, Kevin. All right, listen, we've got the Chicago Bears coming to town, so I wanted you guys to kind of think about, like, what are the keys to victory against the Chicago Bears team that's kind of in a tailspin of their own. They're not, the offense is not living up to the defensive standards. Granted, that defense is nasty, but Mitchell Trubisky, that whole entire offense is really struggling right now.
They're burning Mitch jerseys, too.
Are they burning Mitch
They are.
jerseys already?
Yep.
This guy burned 2 jerseys at one time. 2 jerseys, one fire.
He's a baller.
Did you see that kid, by the way, that burnt that Wentz jersey, apologized publicly?
Good.
As he should.
As he should. As he should. So, Gail, give me some thoughts on the Bears game. How do the Philadelphia Eagles come back home and win this game?
Bring the pressure. I mean, Mitchell Trubisky, a guy who's, his mechanics are off. You get some pressure on him. I think he's reeling right now. I think they feel like he might be the wrong guy. Tariq Cohen, the guy who was big for them last year, they haven't really utilized him. I think their third-round draft pick, their running back. He's been, he's got that ground and pound ability, but I think I don't know if it's forced. Their offense just isn't hitting like it's supposed to be hitting. Obviously, their defense is sound. I think you got to run the ball. You just keep running the ball. I think as we progress through the game, I think you tire them down. Hit them with some play action, get the passing game going a little bit, but stick with the run right now. Like if you keep on run through the teeth of this defense, soften them up, and with their offense they're not performing like they should be. I think we've got a great chance to beat them this week.
Evan Hollywood Hearn, give me your keys to victory against the Chicago Bears.
Keys to victory for me are we have to come out. They've got a dominant defense. There's no ifs, ands, or buts around that.
Nope.
If you look at both their rushing against and their passing against, they're ranking in the top 7. So I think what needs to happen is our defense needs to cause turnovers, and we need to get an early lead. If we get an early lead, then the ball gets put in Mitch's hands. Not to steal the light from Zach Brown, but we want we want this game to be in Mitch's hands. Is how I feel.
Breaking news: Evan just got cut.
I think that if it's all on Mitch, he's going to make mistakes. It's going to cause more turnovers, and that's how we pull away.
I couldn't agree with you more. One of my keys to victory, first and foremost, is pressure Trubisky. Look, I know the Eagles have gotten burnt by the blitz before. Throw the kitchen sink at him. You might get burnt a couple times, but I guarantee you are going to get home against Mitchell Trubisky. They have given up 19 sacks, and Mitchell Trubisky, while giving up 19 sacks, is 44th in quarterback rating at 81.4, 30th in touchdown passes. He's 56th in yards per pass. Just to give you an idea of what that means.
There's 32 teams in the NFL.
Yeah, there's 32 teams in the NFL. He's tied in touchdown passes with Ryan Tannehill. And yards per pass, he's tied with Luke Falk. Luke Falk.
What the fuck?
Who just could be sitting here watching this podcast at home after the 10-sack beating he took from the Philadelphia Eagles.
He's not even on the team anymore.
Look, unleash the dogs. Unleash the hounds.
Brandon Graham's going to eat this game.
Listen, you might get burnt a couple times. You are going to have to live with this. But you have to blitz and pressure him into mistakes. And secondly, you have to protect Wentz at all costs. The Eagles did a phenomenal job of using the quick screen game and simplifying the offense so Carson Wentz could make quick and easy reads and take what the offense was giving him. If that wide receiver screen was covered up, he rushed for it. Well, Carson Wentz had the most rushing yards that he had for a while, if not his career, just because the open field, the ball was going to get out of his hands quickly, the defense react, and it opened up the seas for him, and he went for it.
Yeah.
But you have to protect, in other words, 2 tight ends in almost at all times. Mack is going to be a beast, and they will move him around the field. They will disguise where he's coming from. They will use stunts and try to pick on guys like, say, Amalo or whoever it might be to get to the quarterback. You need your tight ends, and you need your running backs chipping.
Yeah, and they brought in Big V in last week. If you can bring him in as an extra tight end, hey, that's more power to you.
Mm-hmm. And lastly, and I cannot stress this one enough, because it needs to be a key of victory, not only for this game, but moving forward, is stick with that identity that won you those 2 games, and in those 2 games, you looked the best you had all year. Again, Doug Peterson is 32-2 when he runs the ball for over 30 times. And the doubters and the skeptics to that statistic, and not even an outdated narrative, just a false narrative, is of course they run the ball and have a winning record, because when they're winning, they run the ball to milk the clock. We are far enough removed from the 2017 Super Bowl season when we were absolutely curb-stomping people, curb-stomping teams, eating their lunch and running up the score on them to the point where we were just like, let Blunt and Ajayi just run the ball and milk the clock out. When we run the ball, we win. And it doesn't matter if you're running it from behind. It doesn't matter if you're running it when you're tied or when you have the lead. Name the other times where the Eagles have had the lead in the last 2 seasons. And Doug Peterson is still 32-2 when the Eagles run the ball over 31. Please, just stick with this. This is going to be your identity moving forward. You're punching your ticket to the playoffs right here if you stick to this formula. I can't stress that enough.
And like I said, D-Jack's back. It's crazy. Like you add that. I like the balance. You really definitely need the balance in the offense. But when you have that opportunity to have deep shots, that's going to open up things. You're going to see Zach Ertz being back to Zach Ertz. But just wanted to touch on that trade that the Eagles. The play
Please do, because I don't know much about
Jannard Avery. He's one of those guys where when I'm doing my draft research and I'm in the last couple of days and at 3 o'clock in the morning looking at players and like, why am I doing this? He's one of those players, a guy from Memphis. He's one of those tweener types. He was a hybrid type linebacker. He played inside linebacker, outside linebacker, but he's a downhill player as a rusher off the edge. He's gonna give that versatility. I think that's what they liked out of him. He's smaller in stature. He's short arms, but I think he can rush the passer. And if you saw him in one of the clips, he was rushing against Lane Johnson. Got to Nick Foles on that play, but he's a player that can be a situational pass rusher, and I think they see something in him.
Well, you heard our thoughts on the Bills game. You heard our thoughts on the trade deadline. You heard our thoughts on the upcoming matchup against the Bears. You guys absolutely killed it last week with the fan rant segment. We were so impressed. We want to start making this a staple of not only the 4th and JAWN podcast, but the 4th and JAWN web series, because we're live on Facebook right now and on YouTube. And we encourage you to give us a like on Facebook and subscribe on YouTube so you can watch it live as it happens here in studio, not just the podcast. But as always, definitely subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. We wanted to hear from you, so you gave us a couple little fan rants there, Spence, and we got them queued up. Let's hit it, baby.
You have to go into the bye on a high, so beating Chicago is really important. When it comes to the trades, I don't trust any rumors whatsoever. I do trust Howie, and whatever he decides, I'm sticking with my team. I bleed green. So hopefully we can win 5-4. If we can beat one of the 2 difficult games, New England and Seattle, and then hopefully beat the expected teams, you have to go into the bye on a high. So
all right. Well, first of all, we love seeing fans from overseas, across the pond, giving 4th and JAWN some love. Bro, send us our address. I know it's going to be cost expensive for international shipping, but we have got to get your smoke detector fixed, bro, with all that. I don't know how you're sleeping at night with that thing. We really appreciate you checking in. Dude, you have to trust Howie. One of the things that had me so fired up walking in here was all the fire Howie. Howie didn't do enough. Howie's not doing this. As if Howie was sitting in his office for the last 48 hours playing Fortnite instead of making phone calls trying to make trades and improve this team. Of course he did, and of course he has. That's his strength, is trades and free agency and stuff like that. But you have to trust him not to make the same mistake twice. Howie Roseman is a guy who learned from his mistakes when he got banished to the other side of the NovaCare complex, when Chip sent him over there, all right? He learned from his mistakes. He came back a better GM. In my opinion, he made the right move by not making the same mistake for the Golden Tate trade, which is just make a trade for the sake of making a trade. Gail.
Yeah. You bringing up that Golden Tate trade again?
All right.
If you make a trade if you could make a trade that makes sense, you do it. But obviously, he's learned his lessons.
All right, what's the next one?
Sweet baby Jesus in the manger.
DC.
Thank you for blessing my Eagles with another win. Based on the last week of turmoil and controversy, we won. We persevered. Let's keep it consistent and let's beat the Bears. Next up, fast forward to the trade deadline. There's a tall, light-skinned, African-American young gentleman that already looks good in green, and he has great hair like myself. And I'm not talking about myself. His name is Robbie Anderson. Long-term situation. Based on the offense, he'll help. He'll do what he's supposed to do. He fits the scheme, Howie. He fits everything, Howie. Go get him. If you're not down with that, we got 2 words for you. Go Birds. Sweet baby Jesus in the manger.
DC Daryl, love it, love the energy, and I think I see a little bit of that belief thing, man. I'm feeling so much better.
Feeling good about yourself?
I'm feeling good.
Smelling yourself?
I'm not smelling myself. I'm smelling the Eagles. Because listen, right, Robbie Anderson was obviously a little bit too much. Joe Douglas was not going to allow himself to be fleeced like Howie Roseman has fleeced so many other teams. He was not going. Plus, like, look, if you're the New York Jets, why would you get rid of a dude like that when you're trying to give targets to Sam Darnold? You know what I mean? You watch, Eagles fans. You watch the New York. Mark my word, you watch too. You watch the New York Jets, and you watch the job that Joe Douglas does up there, and you will see that Joe Douglas was completely overrated and above. It's Peter principle. He got promoted above his ability, and you'll see exactly what kind of.
This guy is just like, come on.
Joe Douglas hated
you
number
doing?
one. Joe Douglas hated number one.
Tim wins the Super Bowl. This dude is like in the back, making all these great moves, bringing people in, the right pieces that fit, the harmony, bringing the players that love football, and you're here spitting all over his grave.
Yeah, those drafts look good, right? The boards that he set up. What's the next one? I don't want to get into this.
Andre Daly, they're starting tackle right
Relax,
now.
Dude.
Running back, Miles Sanders, most explosive plays in the last since the '90s.
Roll the tape.
Jeez, this guy,
I
ungrateful.
really like the Bills game. They came in and won. It was a dirty win, and it shows that locker room is not near as tainted as what people make it out to be. I think with the trade deadline, people are making too much. They're overestimating the need at corner way too much. I think Jalen Mills has been playing pretty well. Darby's going to get healthier. LeBlanc's going to come back. Maddox is going to come back. That's going to put a big boost in our secondary. I think we should be focusing on another defensive tackle or a speed wide receiver because Fletcher Cox can't do it on his own. I love Tim Jernigan, but when he comes back, who knows how that foot's going to hold up. Deshaun Jackson, I think he's liable to get hurt because he never got surgery on that sports hernia. So.
Well, the guy made a lot of interesting points, but to touch on one of the things that he said was the locker room chemistry. And again, I think Orlando Scandrick might have done, like the game ball, the MVP of that game might just be Orlando. Because listen, it's like a dysfunctional family sometimes. I come from a big family, as many of you who join us at the tailgates know. And the boys, I'm the oldest of 4 boys, we'll bicker amongst ourselves, right? We'll argue, we'll fight, we'll get in each other's faces, we'll get nasty with each other at times. But nobody's allowed to talk about the brothers except us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now, all of a sudden, you got Orlando Scandrick dumping all over Malcolm Jenkins, who's the leader on this team. You got Orlando Scandrick talking about the locker room chemistry. And nothing unifies a team more than looking at a guy and that guy's talking trash on us. Listen, sometimes it's the basic, simple human elements that'll just unite a team. And that's why I'm kind of as I'm talking through it, I'm kind of getting more and more excited about it.
Yeah, I mean the smirk on Scandrick's face as he was going on, like spilling the tea. He just looked like he looked so scorned. He looked so hurt. And then he went on not one show, he went on 2 shows to spill the tea, and he just made himself look worse. Did it bring the guys together? I believe it did. I think I had mentioned that player meeting had to happen now. And then a couple hours later, they reported that the player meeting happened. I think
which, by the way, Malcolm Jenkins never said they had a players meeting. He never said he said they never had a players meeting before, and it took this Orlando Scandrick thing, not the inside sources, not the anonymous sources, not the the Shrines or anything like that. It took Orlando Scandrick for those guys to finally get together in a room, keep the coaches out, and talk it out.
Yeah,
Thank you, Orlando.
I mean, you saw it on the football field. I think that the players got to playing their type of football.
Ev, before we get on out of here, let's hit up a couple Twitter questions. Give me like 3 of them.
Okay. Alex Morrow wants to know, why does this team always have to get, and why do they always have to have the underdog or disrespected label to play through? And I think the question they're trying to wonder is, why do they have to dig themselves in this hole to dig themselves out? Why can't they stick with their identity that they know?
That's a great question, but I'll go right back to that. You know, sometimes it's just a human element. You need look, when we talked about the new norm, or embrace the target, or everything matters, it sounded as phony and as manufactured and superficial as when Jeffrey Lurie put on a T-shirt 53 angry men before they went up to New England, which, by the way, worked. But it felt manufactured. It didn't feel authentic. The reason why the underdog thing became such a huge theme for that 2017 Super Bowl run is because it was made by the players.
Mm-hmm. It was organic.
It was organic. It wasn't on purpose. It just kind of happened. And look, when you take a look at that, what were they really pissed off about? What did they really feel disrespected about?
That people counted
a
them out.
Vegas line. Mm-hmm. They felt disrespected because Las Vegas made them underdogs, even though they were the number 1 overall seed and playing in their stadium. The Vegas line they took personal. But now you've got people taking personal shot. It's not Las Vegas. It's not anonymous people. It's not anonymous sources. There's a guy on TV talking smack. It's a human element to it. And I don't care if that's what it takes to get this team going and unified. God bless Orlando Scandrick. He died for our sins.
Yeah, I just think this team, I mean, in order to be champions, you got to play like champions each and every week. You can't take weeks off. Like good teams win every single week. You don't want to be at the end of the season scratching and clawing and surviving to get in the playoffs. You want to be, you got your mind right. It's all about getting hot at the right time also in the NFL, but I really think that they have to start playing championship football. You can't be. They remind me of myself in high school at last minute, handing in assignments at the very last minute. Mm-hmm. I should have been studying for this weeks ago, but here I am cramming. I think moving forward, they got that juice. Last week could be one of the games that propelled them to start winning more games and playing like champions.
And then mark my words, man. If they can beat the Bears and then steal one of them against the Patriots, hopefully it's the Patriots, and maybe even the Seahawks or something. Again, those last 5 games, you could start getting hot right at the right time. And ask the New York Giants when they won those 2 Super Bowls under Eli Manning, what getting hot at the right time meant.
Ask those Philadelphia Eagles in 2017, bro.
Good, go.
Gary Scottish Eagle wants to know. Ask Eagle Sessions if he was more impressed by the Eagles' O-line or Niagara Falls. Wow.
I'm gonna go the offensive line, man. They did a tremendous job. Despite the conditions, they had the game on their back. The running game was working. The running backs were putting up yards. I mean, hats off to you, offensive linemen. Niagara Falls, it was wet. There was a lot of water.
Yeah. There was a cliff, too.
Yeah, the waterfall was kind of cool.
How'd they get all that water back up to the top?
I don't know. But it was a wow moment in wow history.
I am so glad that this podcast with the trade deadline and what the Eagles got to do to beat the Bears has moved along so quickly as it has, and we're up against it. Because we don't get to talk about our trip up to Buffalo.
And that fraudulent Bills Mafia?
Whoa. Hey, come on. Whoa.
I said what I said.
Take it easy.
Let me take a poll. Raise your hand if you saw someone go through a table.
As I went back and saw some more footage, people, this guy didn't go through the table.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying we didn't see nobody go through a table.
I'm glad you brought that up because I do want to address it because people were disappointed that I didn't go through a table, and it certainly wasn't through lack of trying.
No, we walked around for 2 hours.
We walked around for 2 hours, and it felt like endless miles going from, first of all, what is that, New Era Stadium? I keep wanting to call it Ralph Wilson Stadium. New Era Stadium looks like a glorified high school stadium.
College.
Right? And then it is surrounded by houses, which I wasn't expecting. I don't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting that. Like, you hear about Lambeau Field and how it's like, boom, there's a stadium right in the middle of a neighborhood. That's exactly the way this glorified high school stadium looked like. So when we were tailgating with the Green Legion, by the way, shout out the Green Legion, we had a
Always put on a great party.
great party, well organized. I recommend booking a trip with them. When we were in a restaurant. We were only like about a mile away from the stadium, but we were at like a restaurant. So clearly, because that's private property, they don't want you breaking any tables. Okay, fine and dandy. We make our way over to the Hammerlots. What's called the Hammerlots. Hammerlots are a grass lot, which I can only describe as kind of the same sort of party atmosphere as F-Lot. You walk by, you're getting the a-hole chant, that's going to happen. But the more you talk to the Bills fans, like I went up to Bills, like the one fat dude on the corner, like he was giving us a hard time, right? So I walked up to him, I said, listen, man, obviously we're from out of town, can you point me in the direction of the table light? Sweetest guy in the world, like told us everything. Started the a-hole chant at us, and then when we actually went up to him and asked him a question, sweet as anything. But there were so many Eagles fans, and they were walking around with signs, ladies and gentlemen, big signs. Gail posted a picture on the 4th and JAWN Instagram, signs that said no table bashing, or no going through tables, no dizzy bat.
No excessive drinking.
No excessive drinking. They had multiple people walking around with signs, right? So that was the lot that the dude with the ketchup in the I don't get any of that, dude. There's this old man with a beard that stands with the hot dog in his hands and then gets ketchup or mustard sprayed into his face like it's a Brazers video. It's so weird. Like, look, I don't want to ever hear anything about my Pope hat and that being corny, because Bill's Mafia got the corniest setup I've ever seen in my life. So then we walk past past this Fugazi Stadium, and we finally make our way. No, we walk through like the property of the stadium, and then I'm asking people, hey, where are the table lots?
Where can I break my back?
These dudes had no idea what I was talking about. They looked at me like I had 6 heads.
Breaking tables?
Table lots? What are you talking about? And these are the passes for the season ticket holders to get into the stadium. They had no clue what I was talking about. By that time, we're like an hour and a half into this walk. We finally find the table lots. Finally. And then there's some fat dude. The lots were caged. There was like a fence around the lots. And he was like, you can't get in here. Well, why? Because I'm wearing Eagles colors? He's like, no. Unless you pay, we stamp your hand. Unless you have the stamp, you can't. Oh, great. Wonderful. So now we can't even get the lots to break a table.
Yeah, you need a car to get in
so
there.
You needed a car to get in there, and you need to pay for parking. So we get across the street, and finally we found some place, and nobody wanted to do it. Nobody wanted to do it. Now, look, I saw videos of Eagles fans. Our man Showtime, right? He went through a table and stuff like that. But the way I had it pictured in my head, I wanted to be authentic. I wanted a Bills fan to do like the Undertaker choke slam and send me through a table. Because, look, reality of the situation, for those of you viewing at home, spoiler alert, I'm not a big guy. I'm 5'6", 160 pounds, which means I'm going to take one of these plastic tables, I'm going to set it up, and I have to crawl to the top of an RV to even get the momentum to break a table. And chances are these plastic tables, because I couldn't find a wooden table, I'd bounce right off the thing like a ping pong ball. So I needed some assistance, like some fat Bills fan, which, by the way, the bulk of them, to put me through the table, and it just never happened. It just never happened. So for those of you that were pissed off that I didn't go through a table, it wasn't for lack of trying, okay? Daddy tried. I tried to go through a table. It didn't happen. And then it was raining. And then it was like a monsoon out. That wind was so bad, I would have climbed to the top of an RV and just blew right the hell off.
I got an idea.
What?
We get a Fisher Price, my first table. We'll bring it over to the next tailgate. And we'll actually saw the bottom a little bit.
How about here's what you do. You held up a pork roll, and I'll spray you with the ketchup and mustard.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
Yeah, no.
Not doing that.
And they call what I do at the tailgates corny. They call what I do at the tailgates corny. These people are getting sprayed with ketchup and mustard. Jesus. What the hell were we talking about?
I think we were doing Twitter questions.
Twitter questions. All right, let's wrap this thing up, man. I'm sweating now. I just got heated. Shout out to oh, by the way, the tailgate. Hey, we're coming back home. We're coming back home. The parking lot F1. Of course, the tailgate gets popping as soon as the gates get open. 6 o'clock. Don't have to be there that early. Things start popping off at 8 o'clock. Beer sponsor. Beer will be provided by Bud Light, and of course the tomato pies, the delicious tomato pies. Sponsored by Conshohocken Bakery. You can come there, sample the wares. We will be in full tailgate mode. It feels so good to be back home and be able to tailgate. So
I can
please
smell the
come
pork
over.
roll right now.
Parking lot F1. Any final thoughts before we get out of here? I'm sweating now that I got
we're getting back to our groove back. We're getting that dub. Like, I don't see Mitchell Trubisky coming here doing damage. I don't. I feel like this team's got the juice. And if Deshaun Jackson is back, you better watch out.
Evan.
Minimum 3 turnovers is what's going to happen. We're going to have Mitch on his back all day. That's how we win this game.
30-plus runs. 2 tight end sets. Get the ball out of Carson Wentz's hands quickly. You win this game. Now's the time where you have the ability, trade deadline be damned, where you have the ability while the cavalry is coming and the reinforcements are going to start backing you up to get hot at the right time. Let's go Birds. And until next week, we will see you right here from NBC Sports Studios with 4th and JAWN. Go Birds.